Good morning, everybody. I'm very grateful for the invitation to be here. Thank you to Gunny and to Angela as well for making it easy for me to turn up, even though my slides were late. I should have perhaps mentioned earlier that I'm one of these people who should not be given a mic. I love it far too much, and once it's in my sweaty hands, I find it hard to let it go. But I will really try to keep to the 15 minutes because I know we are tight for time today. So I don't need to introduce myself. Gunny's done that very well. A few words about my organisation, because we're signing an MOU today with AESIN TechWorks, so we will be at your disposal as well. Anything that you feel that ITS UK can do for you, contact your secretariat, and within reason they will make it happen. And hopefully we will also be working more closely with yourselves. There's an obvious place where our two organisations meet, which is connected and automated vehicles, but there will be other points of contact as well, and I'm looking forward to some really good collaboration in the future arising from this MOU. So we've been going since 1992. We are the oldest national ITS association in the world. The Association for Europe, which is Ertico, and ITS America are slightly older than we are, but they are continental. We are national, so we are the oldest. We're currently chaired by Arup and by Innovate UK, both organisations I'm sure you know very well. We have a very diverse range of members from DFT, who happen to be here, which is great, down to startups like Valoran and Vivacity and many, many different organisations in between. We pride ourselves on being there for all our members, from technical experts, professors of international renown, to apprentices and people just starting out. And we organise ourselves into forums. So for instance, we have a forum for connected vehicles, whose chair, Andy Graham, is here somewhere. There he is, right at the back, so just a man to talk to. We like to think of ourselves as a critical friend to the public sector. Darren probably thinks more of us as a critical enemy, but never mind. We're very well connected internationally, and I personally am trying to make it my crusade to get the whole of the ITS sector to get involved in ITS standardization, ISO, SEN and ETSI. That is an uphill struggle and probably echoes with this community as well, I guess, that people use the standards but find it hard to find the time to actually contribute to them. So I was invited to talk about my life and times based on an article I wrote for our current review. You can get a copy on the reception desk. And my article was based around 3 revolutions I've seen. And I'm then also supposed to talk about workforce diversity, and you will see how seamlessly I join these 2 separate topics, I hope. So the first revolution I picked is portable devices. I got into the sector in the mid-90s, and I would say this is a true revolution. The fact that nearly everybody now has on their person something that connects them to just about any journey they may wish to make. They can plan it, they can buy the tickets, they get information when things go wrong, they can replan or get advice as to how to replan. Those of you who are my age will remember what it used to be if there was a crash on the motorway or if there was a signal failure on the railways. You just sat there. Nothing much you could do. That has so changed. Coming on the back of that, some of us are worried about digital exclusion, but I'm a little bit contentious, I suppose is the word, on that one. I'm a part-time trustee, a voluntary trustee with Bus Users UK, and the Bus Users line is that the digital revolution in transport was basically divisive and discriminatory and shouldn't have happened. In my opinion, we are well past where we say that the digital revolution shouldn't have happened. What we now need to do is change digital exclusion into digital inclusion by the people who are currently excluded, who are not the ones that we often assume, low-income people, people with lower educational attainment, etc., etc. There's quite a wide range of people who are digitally excluded, and the reasons are really very varied. But the way to tackle this is to include them. If we, as a society, can pay for free travel for millions of pensioners and quite a few young people as well, why can't we even think about providing free basic devices to the people if that would make them digitally included? Just need to think a little bit creatively. My second revolution of choice is the London congestion charge, which was absolutely not revolutionary in terms of the technology behind it, or the infrastructure and all those things about how it was implemented, that had already been done, and to some extent been done better and slightly more advanced in other parts of the world. What was revolutionary about it was that it was an example of policy making and delivery with a small group of people being convinced that this was the right thing for London and driving it through. The media hostility was incredible, and as we've seen recently with smart motorways, strong media hostility can actually have impact. It didn't with the London congestion charge. They just pushed on. They worked extremely closely with the public. As a Londoner, I felt I could have given technical presentations on the darn thing before it was even implemented, because the information was just so relentless, which of course helped that when it was implemented, it just worked. The Evening Standard was able to find one clone plate whereby a tractor in Scotland was charged for the congestion charge. That was it. Nothing else went seriously wrong. There was nothing more to write about. Jobs, fantastic. And also the focus of it was the societal good. Less congestion, cleaner air, better road safety, all good things. We in ITS maybe would have liked a bit more puff about the technology, but TfL and the GLA didn't tolerate that. That wasn't how they sold it. It was, in my opinion, an absolute case study in how to do something quite deceptively simple, but actually quite difficult, and doing it well. And my last revolution, cycling in towns, which is a nod to a report some of you may be familiar with, but today it's cycling in towns. Now, I came to this country in 1980, and I'm born in the early 60s. I do know that cycling was a normal form of transport, particularly commuting type transport, particularly for working class people in this country, up to about, I don't know, mid-50s, late 50s, something like that. I never saw it myself, but you see it in like old film footage and whatever, the factory gates open and the thousands of bikes stream out. So it used to be normal. By the time I got here, it was completely abnormal. The country I came from, Sweden, it never went away. If the distances were short, it was still normal, apart from a few months in winter where really it wouldn't be very safe to do it. But apart from that, normal. What was interesting when it returned here in the noughties, in my opinion, is the demographic was totally different. It was professional males, fairly young, well-educated. The bicycles were £800, £1,000. The gear they were wearing, I won't use the nasty term for them, the two words beginning with L, but the gear they were wearing was just as expensive. And somehow they managed to, they got a lot of policy traction because, surprise, surprise, the people who make policy are often of that ilk themselves. But they also generated a lot of hostility. And I think this one is still playing out. They are there. There's a commitment from, for instance, the new body, Active Travel England, that no, active travel is something that everyone should be doing, and they want to implement policies to make that happen, and let's hope they succeed. For us in our community, there are great technology opportunities to do with active travel, cycling and other forms, hiring them, finding good routes for them, keeping them safe from lorries and buses, loads of techie opportunities. But where we're going with this, I think it's going to be really interesting. They're there. They are like Marmite. They are very divisive. To me, the way forward is going to be that it becomes a mainstream form of getting about. Until that happens, we're still going to have this slight hostility between people doing active travel and people doing other forms of travel. But still, it's been really interesting. It's been interesting to see it going from zero to really quite important in the major British cities in such a short time. So this is my seamless join, whereby I tell you that if we are going to build on these revolutions, if we're going to achieve all the good things we need to achieve with, in my case, with technology, but I do think it's got applications in your field as well. It's not specific to ITS. We do need a more diverse workforce than we have now. The ITS workforce, looking around the room, is perhaps a bit similar to your workforce. Could be definitely be more diverse, and it's certainly not representative of the people we actually serve. And in our case, nearly all the money we spend is taxpayers' money. I know that's different for you, but if you're spending taxpayers' dollar, you really ought to try and represent the taxpayer so that you provide the best service. So no surprise, half of us are female in this country, 14% of us are people of colour, 18% of us are disabled, And the prognosis is there probably won't be fewer girls born. I mean, nature is doing some weird things, but probably won't do that. Right now, 30% of the children in our secondary schools are of minority ethnic origin. So anybody who deliberately or just by habit recruits white English males is going to find the pool getting very, very small in over the next 10 to 20 years. So time to rethink. And because we live and work longer, the percentage of potential hires with disabilities is going to go up. And also, if we work with them, can be a really good addition to our workforce. And you can see we have a lot of work to do. 14% of engineers are female, and it falls off rapidly at the age of about 30. There seems to be something to do with being an engineer, working as an engineer, and having children as a woman that is not compatible. It's not too bad. It's pretty good at university, actually, and in apprenticeships. But by the time they get to 30, a lot of them disappear out of the workforce, so not great. So just a few quotes, which I won't read to you in detail, but it is by now an academically proven fact that a diverse team does deliver better outcomes, whether that's making more money if you're commercial or providing a better service if you're a local authority or what have you. No, this has been proved. Quite a lot of work on the financial crash 2008 has been around the fact that if banking was a female profession like, say, HR or nursing, would it actually have happened? Very interesting to think about. Women's attitude to risk is quite different. Nothing about us without us, you've heard that before. That's what all minorities say, and they're right to say it. And quote from myself at the TTF conference that Jennie mentioned, a representative transport workforce will deliver a transport system which serves citizens better. My husband was in the Metropolitan Police from early 80s to early noughties. So through the Brixton riots, through the Stephen Lawrence murder, and a lot of the work done by and for the Met on race really resonated with me. The fact that if the Met only represented Londoners better, they wouldn't get in half the pickles they do. And Lord knows the pickles, he's long gone out of it, but Lord knows the pickles continue. So, okay, that's all great. You all agree with me. This is how it should be. But your board or your HR department, your recruitment consultants will make sure you're not breaking the law. Does it really concern you? Well, actually, it concerns all of us. And I think these are my takeaways. I'm not a massive fan of diversity training, the way it's done by professional people. I'm sure there's some very good ones out there, but the ones I've heard about, it seems to be thought police to me. We don't need to change the way we think. The way we think is it's personal, it's innate, comes from our social background, and for work purposes, in my opinion, doesn't need to change. It's what we do that needs to change. It's the processes we follow, the actions we take, the way we behave in the workplace. That's what needs to change. Think what you like. Just act appropriately. So you're probably already doing it. You're spreading the word about transport to diverse people in your circle. Maybe some of you are already volunteering for STEM promotion. If you're not, then you should think about it. You're probably doing Bring a Buddy, Bring Your Daughter to Work, all those great things. I do think if you happen to be a minority in your profession, then it behoves on you to get up there. I annoy women that I know in ITS by saying that it doesn't matter whether you enjoy it or not. You need to get up there and do it because you're doing it for the women who come behind you. And I think that's really important. We're all role models in our own little way. And when we know that we need to step up. If you're senior, and I think a lot of you are, then you actually have power over recruitment and retention and promotion and training. Make sure you use it for good. Bring on the people who are in a minority. It doesn't mean excluding anyone else. Just be mindful. Make sure that everybody's given the resources that their potential deserves. Call it. If you hear something that sounds wrong to you, don't ignore it. Call it. It doesn't matter what the recipient of the comment or the activity feels. When I was a young woman, the number of comments I had about Swedish au pair, sexy Swedish au pair, I laughed and I smiled when I heard those comments. That wasn't because I enjoyed it or I approved it or I thought it was right. It was a coping strategy. I was a woman in my early 20s in a job I really needed, so I just had to put up with it. things have changed. That was British Rail in the 80s. But now, when we hear something and it's wrong, call it. The person who's the victim of it may be standing there smiling and seeming to be joining in. It's 99% certain they're not doing that because they're actually enjoying it. They're trying to cope, and you can help them. And lastly, never ever say, oh, they fit in so well into the team. I really enjoy working with him. Oh, she's really a friend more than a workmate. What you should be running your team in a way that what you're actually saying is, when I work with X, they really challenge me, and I work more creatively and I think more analytically as a result. We don't go to work to have friendship circles and go to the pub. We go to work to deliver good results. And if you judge people by how much fun they're going to be down the pub, that is not a good recruitment or promotion strategy. And as I say, the academic work is in, an inclusive workforce delivers better results. So there's just a few websites, addresses there, if anything I've said has struck a chord. I am not at all a diversity professional, but as I said earlier, I'm quite pleased I'm not a diversity professional. I'm just someone who's worked for 40 years, who's an immigrant myself, was 20 when I came here, so I really am foreign. You don't change once you're 20. I'm also a woman who spent all her life, working life, in very male circles. So if what I've said strikes a chord, then please speak to me, and I hope you have a really good day. And thank you very much for being invited. And I hope you felt I joined those two topics together absolutely seamlessly.